Hi there, this is Ranjit from techtobas.com and I have the Sony Xperia Z1 with me, and in this video we're going to do the full in-depth review for this flagship Android phone by Sony. This Xperia Z1 sports some very impressive specs. It sports a quad-core processor based on the Snapdragon 800 chipset, hence it's a very powerful phone, and the processor is clocked at 2.2 GHz. It has 2 gigs of RAM and the GPU on this is Adreno 330. That's a very powerful GPU. So in terms of specs, raw specs, it has some of the best hardware that you can get as of now. And before I proceed, let me give you actually a physical overview of this phone. On the top, we'll have this 3.5mm headphone jack, and on this actually there's a flap and this opens. We have these flaps because this is a water resistant phone, and Sony says that you can submerge the phone up to 1 meters in water and up to 30 minutes, and then also nothing will happen to the phone. You can add your micro SIM over here, and let's close this flap, and we have the power on off button. This is the volume rocker, and we have a 2-stage shutter button, and we have an opening for the lanyard, and this is actually the speaker opening for the speaker. As you can see, it is pretty wide, but the location is not that great. For example, if you're doing particularly gaming, while you're doing gaming for racing games, etc., you might hold the phone like this, and that tends to block the speaker. But apart from that, it's okay. I would say it's not the loudest speakers I've seen, and we have a opening for a proprietary dock, and again here we have 2 flaps. One is for the micro USB slot that will be used for charging this phone, and this is for the micro SD card. You can add a micro SD card up to 64 GB to this phone. Internal storage is 16 GB that we get with this phone. And moving towards the back, again we have this glass back, and we have the 20.7 megapixel camera with the Sony G lens. We have a LED flash. We have an N, that means it's NFC capable. We have Sony and the Xperia branding. Both the front and the back are glass, like the Sony Xperia Z that we have seen. The front facing camera is a 2 megapixel shooter, and we also have array of sensors here. Again, if you notice, we don't have any physical buttons on the front part of the screen, because the buttons, like all other modern Xperia phones, are part of the display, the back, home, and the multitasking tray. And before I proceed with the review, I want to thank Faisal Communications for providing this unit for review. And India, this phone MRP is around 44,900, but Faisal Communications quoted me a street price of around 40,000 for this Xperia Z1. Now coming to the screen, it has a 5-inch screen, and that's a full HD screen. The screen actually is a pretty improvement over the Sony Xperia Z or the ZL, but again I did notice that in my testing, the viewing angles though have been improved, they are not among the best. If you start tilting the phone, they tend to start fading a little bit. The camera is not able to capture it. But if you start comparing it with flagship Android phones from Samsung, they definitely have a much better viewing angle. The screen quality has improved a lot compared to prior Xperia phones, but still I feel Sony has a long way to go. If we start comparing with the Samsung or even LG phones that have an IPS display, the screen quality is not that great. Coming to the phone, physically holding the phone, it's decent, but again I would say if we compare it with a standard 5-inch phone, for example this is Samsung Galaxy S4, you will immediately notice that this Xperia Z1 is a tad bigger. Actually it's a bit taller compared to the Samsung Galaxy S4, and it's a little bit big. Again, I did find that this chin at the bottom is a tad bigger, because we do have these on-screen buttons, so this chin is a little bit big. Sony it would have been great if the chin was a little bit smaller. Coming to the weight, the phone is a little bit of a hefty phone. It weighs 170 grams, but I would say Sony did a good job. The weight distribution is evenly done, so while holding the phone in one hand, it does not feel that bulky. But because the phone is a little bit big, I would say reaching all the parts is a little bit difficult. You have to move around a little bit. If you have small hands, you'll have a problem. So that's the thing with the physical overview. This is the app tray, and Sony has installed actually quite a bit apps on this phone. And let me also show you the Android version. The good thing is that we have some quick toggles over here, and if you go to the settings and go to about the phone, out of the box we get the Android version 4.2.2, that is Cherry Beam, and specifically the model number that is sold in India is the C6902. Coming to the internal storage, as I told you, you have 16 gigs. and I have installed a lot of apps. So right now we'll have actually very less storage, and you can also add a micro SD card up to 64 GB. Sony has installed a lot of apps. For example, games also, like Asphalt 7 was pre-installed, and a lot of third-party apps are pre-installed on this phone. But luckily, many of those apps can be uninstalled to free up the internal storage. Now coming to the voice call quality, the voice call quality that I got with this one is very good. Actually, the LED notification light is over here, so if you get a missed call etc, it glows here, and using the control panel you can also adjust that. So Sony has provided a lot of control over that. Moving to the battery, as this phone is a waterproof phone, the battery is sealed inside. It's a 3000 milliampere battery, and I would say it's a much improvement over the Sony Xperia Z or the ZL. In my testing, the battery was pretty decent, I would say, and it should last you for one working day without any issues. One place where I did notice that the battery tends to drain a little bit more is when you play around with the camera a lot. If you take the a lot of camera shots, the battery tends to drain a little bit. But I would say with normal usage, the battery should easily last you for one full working day without any issues. Coming to the RAM, as I said, we have 2 gigs of RAM on this one. And let me also show you that actually in terms of the performance, the phone was very snappy. The Snapdragon 800 chipset is actually very fast. It's very fluid, and I'm glad to say that I did not notice any stuttering or lagginess when I was testing this phone. So in terms of that, it's very good. And let me show you the Android system info. And as you can see, it's showing free RAM is 788. I ran it a couple of times. It also went to around 850. But I would say the phone is very responsive, and you won't face issues of lag or anything like that. I also tried this phone with some heavy games like Asphalt 7, Real Racing, Riptide GP, etc. And it could play all those games without any issues. I've actually made a dedicated video regarding the gaming and also the benchmark. So if you're interested in that, you can check out this gaming video. Also in benchmarks, I got some of the top scores. So in terms of raw hardware, it is top notch, and you get some of the best hardware as of now. Now, as we are connected to my Wi-Fi network, let's test the web browser. Again, the good thing is that this phone does support both the bands, that's 2.4 GHz and 5 GHz. I've loaded my website tech2buzz.com. Again, just notice how smooth the pinch to zoom gesture is. It's very smooth, no issues. And let's open up one of the stories because we have a YouTube video here, and let's try to play it back.
Hi there, this is Ranjit from tech2buzz.com.
Again, as you can see, if you have no problems, it can play videos that are embedded in the web page. Again, I'm zooming in and zooming out also. Then also, as you can see, the phone is very responsive. And I did test it with a lot of web browsing. Again, I had no issues. It's very fluid and a very powerful phone. Coming to the media playback, also I had some very good experience, and this phone does support USB OTG. I have this USB OTG cable and I have a pen drive. I have a video on this, so let's attach this pen drive, and it will glow here, and as you can see, it's attached. And it will also detect here that the USB storage has been detected. So let's fire up the file manager that we have on this one. We had Astro, and I'll open this USB disk, and let's play back this Nature MP4 video. This is a 1080p video, and as you can see, it will play it without any issues. I tested it with a lot of 720p clips and even some 1080p clips, and I had no problems playing those videos. So if you watch a lot of videos also, then don't worry, this phone should run most of them without any issues. Also, I did test it with YouTube, and I had no problem. It can play YouTube videos in HD. As this Xperia Z1 is also water resistant, so I tested it by pouring water. So I'm pouring, actually, as you can see, a bottle of water on this one. And actually, when the water is falling, the screen will act a little bit, but don't worry, nothing will happen. And as you can see, I have inverted this full bottle of water, and then also this Xperia Z1 is working fine. So don't worry if you accidentally drop it in water or water falls, you shouldn't have any problems with the Xperia Z1. Now coming to the camera, which is a highlighting point about this phone, that's a 20 megapixel camera. the camera actually does a very good job. Let me show you the interface. I won't get into details regarding the camera because I've already made a dedicated video regarding the camera performance, but the camera actually does a very good job, and it is actually very quick. And as you can see, we do get the superior auto mode in which it actually auto detects the type of photograph we are taking, for example document, macro, etc. And let's see the snap that we took right now. Just look at the detail. I'm just zooming in and zooming out. It has a lot of detail. So if you take a lot of photos of documents also, etc., they come out very good. This is the photo that we took right now, and you look at the detail. It's very good. So if you're interested more regarding the camera, you can check out my camera review for this phone. Overall, I would say the camera does a very good job. The video also it can take is very good, but I found that videos when you take indoors in artificial light, sometimes the autofocus goes a little bit bonkers. But for static pictures, I would say this 20 megapixel camera is very good. One thing you need to know is that for taking pictures in this 20 megapixel, you have to take the photos, and it takes the photos in 4:3 ratio. If you want to go widescreen, then it goes down to 8 megapixel. That's the only annoying factor. It would have been great if the resolution for 16:9 was a little bit bumped up. And Sony also did not skimp on any sensors. For example, multi-touch points, it has is all 10 multi-touch points that it can track without any issue. So that's the max 10. And the touch sensitivity is also very good. For example, in some of the games, the touch response was excellent, I would say. Also, let me show you the Compass app. As I told you, Sony did not skimp on any sensors, so actually everything works on this phone. And we also have the Sony small apps. These are actually apps that can run over existing apps. For example, let's open my web browser, and let's say I have to do some calculation. I can do that. So these are Sony small apps, and these are great. You can write notes, stuff. You can move them around also like this. And actually you can download a lot more of these small apps from the Play Store. Let me also show you the keyboard. This is the messaging app, and write the message. This is the keyboard, and the keyboard is pretty wide. So, but we do get auto prediction, and I found the keyboard to be very comfortable, and it also works in this landscape orientation if you want. So what do I feel about the Sony Xperia Z1? This is a great phone by Sony, and particularly it'd be useful for people who take a lot of photographs, because the camera on this one is actually a lot better than some of the other Android phones in the same range. One thing that I did not like about this phone is that Sony should have added the option of taking photos in 16:9 ratio at higher resolutions. The max is 8 megapixel, because these days many of the people take snaps in widescreen. So that's a little bit annoying. Another thing is that, as I told you earlier also, the placement of the speaker is actually a weird location, and while playing games, I frequently found that I was blocking the speaker. You can see that in my gaming review. I talked about that a lot. Also, I felt that the speaker is not that loud. It should have been a lot louder. But in terms of raw performance, the phone is really fast. I hardly faced any issues of lag. There's no lagginess or anything like that. I tried heavy multitasking with this phone. Everything, it runs. Whatever I threw on this phone, it could handle it without any issues. One thing is a little bit of annoyance that I have is the panel that Sony has put. Though it's a very good panel, the color reproduction is actually very good, but the viewing angles are simply not that great. These are some of the small nitpickings that I experienced, but overall I would say the Sony Xperia Z1 is a very good Android phone, and particularly if you take a lot of photographs, have a serious look at the Sony Xperia Z1. So that's it for now for this review. If you found it helpful, I'll appreciate if you can click the like button. Thank you. This is Ranjit, and I hope to see you in my next video.